Thank you everyone for joining us today. I want to welcome you to the policy work group for fiscal year 25-26 medium and heavy duty on and off-road incentive projects. My name is April Schmitz and I will be facilitating the meeting today. I'm joined by our fabulous heavy duty incentive teams who will be presenting on their projects shortly. Before we get started today, I want to go over some logistics for today's discussion. First, this meeting is being recorded, and you will be able to watch the recording on our meetings and workshops webpage in approximately 2 weeks. Next, we will be using the Zoom raise hand feature to facilitate comments and questions. If there are Zoom disruptions for any reason, including malicious intent, we will immediately end today's meeting and send out another notice to reschedule. If you have called in from your phone, we will adjust the phone number and call on you based on the last 4 digits of your phone number when your hand is raised. Now let's take a look at our meeting agreements. For today's meeting, we ask that CARB staff and attendees follow a set of meeting agreements. The first agreement is that we be respectful. Let's be kind to each other and create a space where everyone feels comfortable sharing their opinions and experiences. Second, we have to take space and make space. If you're usually quiet, challenge yourself to take more space. If you usually talk a lot, be mindful to leave room for quieter voices. Also, listen to understand. Let's practice active listening to each other. And finally, we want to develop solutions with equity in mind. Equity is the idea that not everyone starts from the same place and that some may have unique advantages or barriers to reaching a goal. Thank you all. With these agreements in mind, let's get our meeting started. So here's our agenda. Our policy work group meeting today is focused on policy recommendations for fiscal year 25-26 medium and heavy duty on and off-road projects that are listed on your screen. I will start us off with an allocation overview for this year's proposed budget. Inder will follow that up with updates on the Clean Truck, Bus, and Voucher Incentive Project, known as HVIP. And then Brianna will give us an update on the Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Project, or ISEF. After ISEF, Nicole will give us an update on CORE, followed by Matt giving updates on the Sustainable Heavy-Duty Incentives for Future Technology, also known as SHIFT. And then we'll finish the work group off with an update to our long-term heavy-duty investment strategy. There will be time for questions after each topic. Additionally, the email address for project leads will be shown throughout presentations. You may also email your questions or comments to them, particularly if we run out of time. We will complete our meeting at 3 o'clock sharp. We do have a large number of attendees, so again, if you don't have an opportunity to ask your question during the webinar, feel free to email staff direct. The proposed allocations for 25-26 are shown on the screen. The 3-party budget agreement finalized in June includes 2 appropriations for CARB. The first is $132 million in penalties and compensation from a large multi-party settlement with Hino Motors. The second is $35 million for the Air Quality Improvement Program. After withholding about 5% for administration, the appropriations come out to $125 million and $33 million. While we have flexibility for the allocation of HVIP monies, the Hino settlement must go towards the Clean Truck Bus Voucher Incentive Project, or HVIP, and its subprograms. To that end, we propose allocating the majority of the Hino dollars, $95 million, to HVIP Standard. $25 million to HVIP Transit Set Aside to support transit agencies ahead of the Innovative Clean Transit deadlines, and $5 million to the ISEF to continue supporting California's small fleets and businesses. In the context of huge demand for the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, known as CORE, we propose allocating $31 million to that program and providing a small $2 million contribution to extend the administration of our demonstration and pilot projects under the Sustainable Heavy Duty Initiatives for Future Technology, or SHIFT program. The legislature has deferred appropriations from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund until later this summer, with decisions arriving sometime between late August and mid-September. CARB could receive an appropriation in the final weeks of our funding plan development process, which may require agility on our part to program that appropriation if the legislature isn't prescriptive on its use. So that's all for this year's proposed allocation. I'll turn it over to Ender and he can take it away with HVIP.
Thank you, April. Again, thank you everyone for attending today. We'd like to start off with a brief overview of HVIP. Could we switch the slide? So as you can see here, launched in 2009 by the California Air Resource Board in partnership with CalSTART, HVIP is a point of sale incentive program. It provides vouchers directly to dealers to reduce the upfront cost of cleaner trucks and buses. To date, HVIP has helped over the 15,200 clean vehicles be I'm sorry, be deployed, engaged with more than 2,000 fleets, and redeemed close to $850 million in vouchers to date. Next slide. As April mentioned, we have the HVIP proposed funding allocation based off a Hino settlement, and this was an enforcement action taken by CARB and settled with the company Hino. And HVIP is receiving the following 95 million and 25 million for the transit set aside as proposed. Currently, this is what is proposed in the 2025-26 funding cycle. We are developing a proposed allocation plan still, so this could be subject to change, but our approach is data-driven, based on market performance and stakeholder feedback, and overall statewide clean transportation goals. HVIP is anticipating receiving the following funding allocation in the upcoming year and is making plans to do so. Next slide. In addition to this funding allocation, we are currently proposing several potential policy changes to HVIP this year. The first is an MSRP cap. This was directed to us by the board to explore as a possible implementation in the HVIP program. We are also conducting annual reviews of voucher amounts based on market conditions and HVIP redemption data. And so this is the continuing process that we've discussed prior, and we will continue to do this on an annual basis. We are also discussing and looking into potential changes to transit bus voucher amounts. So a similar exercise looking at voucher data and market conditions in the transit bus industry. In addition, we are looking to expand vetting and testing requirements for vehicle OEM participation in HVIP. Next slide. In terms of the MSRP cap, the MSRP cap would use market data to define maximum vehicle prices eligible for HVIP vouchers. This was a policy that was recommended by the board last year, and we were looking into different ways of implementing this and looking for stakeholder feedback in regards to an MSRP cap. The goal would be to ensure that funding goes
Hey,
towards...
Ender,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. If you don't mind slowing down a little bit for our
Sure.
interpreters. Thank you.
So going back to the MSRP cap, this would use market data to define maximum vehicle prices eligible for HVIP vouchers. This would ensure that funding goes towards cost-effective vehicle purchases. The cap would be reviewed and adjusted annually by weight classes to reflect market shifts. And we are, again, looking for any kind of stakeholder feedback regarding the MSRP cap. This is a policy that we're still developing. Next slide. As presented earlier this year, we proposed voucher amounts to be changed, and this slide summarized the proposed voucher amounts previously presented. The amounts are designed to move closer to covering up a percentage of the incremental cost between zero-emission vehicles and their combustion engine counterparts, factoring in TCO. That was the underlying metric used for development of this table. These amounts are still being evaluated based on stakeholder feedback, and a revised version of this will likely be released in the next few weeks. So This is far from a final version. We are still taking in significant feedback and working through our decision makers to come up with a table that makes sense for industry and for the incentive programs. Next slide. In addition to this proposed change, we look to do an annual review of voucher amounts. Each year we will review market trends and redemption performance. We're examining whether the current vouchers are aligned with the program goal to cover roughly the cost of incremental difference between ZEV and ICE vehicles. And we're also looking at opportunities to add a public fleet voucher amount to better serve those specific needs for public fleets. Transit bus vouchers amounts may need to be increased based on current pricing trends, and that particular analysis is currently being undertaken as well. Next slide. And finally, to our last slide today is the introduction of an increased vetting and testing requirements for vehicle and OEM participation in HVIP. CARB is working on a testing plan to evaluate ZEV trucks in the Riverside lab as a prerequisite for HVIP eligibility. In addition, is working to potential options for vetting OEM participation. The goal here is we want to vet OEM participants that would be eligible for HVIP vouchers. And we're looking at stakeholder feedback today for ideas and more information about what that could look like as we develop a policy going forward. Next slide. At this point, we'd like to open the floor for questions or comments. If you're calling in, please use the raised hand function or press number 2. When recognized, please state your name and affiliation before speaking.
All righty. Jamie Levine, I'm going to unmute you in just a moment. So once again, please state your name and affiliation.
Great. Jamie Levin with the Center for Transportation and the Environment. Inder, I sent you and Dong some data and some spreadsheets to look at TCO that was requested by Peter Christensen. I'm assuming you've seen that, or at least it's in your inbox to review as you make final decisions on the amount of the vouchers for Class 8 trucks. But I have a couple of other issues to bring to your attention that need to be considered. The first is that we may be looking at, likely looking at importing Class 8 fuel cell trucks that would be subject to the tariffs that are proposed by the, well, actually at this point intended to be enacted as of August 1st, which in the case of Hyundai, which is the other fuel cell truck that is in the process of being registered as an eligible Class 8 fuel cell drayage and heavy duty truck, that could be a 25% tariff based on what has been offered by the federal government. So the question here is, does that have to be added to the MSRP? Because that further makes it very difficult to afford these vehicles. It would be great if it could be left off of the MSRP, because if it's included in the MSRP, there's also federal excise and sales tax. And I believe the federal administration does not consider the tariff, at least in their view, as a tax. So that's number one, is how to deal with tariffs. It's extremely important and price sensitive. The other is that we're also looking at extended warranties that would be not included in the MSRP. It would be like buying a combination of an extended service plan and an extended warranty, often sold for light duty vehicles. We would like that not to be included in the MSRP. It just adds more tax, 12% federal excise, 10.25% or thereabouts, approximately, sales tax. So those are very critical factors in the affordability of being able to launch a technology that a number of fleets have come to the conclusion that's what they need in order to meet their duty cycle requirements. I'll finish with that, and maybe you have a follow-up question from what I said.
So, Jamie, we did get your comments. So I know that Peter and Young and I have received those. So that is part of the stakeholder feedback that we're reviewing. Just to kind of reiterate at this point that HVIP is launching with the new voucher amounts in September. And so we're also looking for input on new voucher recommendations for the board in December, right? Or towards the end of this year. And so I think this will be an ongoing process throughout this year and kind of continuing forward every year as we progress through the funding plan cycle. So I just want to reiterate that in the November board meeting, we will be relooking at all of these voucher amounts from what we changed in September and reopen. We'll, reevaluate where we're at market-wise, see if it makes sense at that level, and then present the options in November.
Right.
Yeah.
Ender, I think as what I sent you, you can play around with the numbers. You can plug in $160,000 voucher amount, and you then see what the total cost of ownership is, considering as well the fuel price, which is very challenging. I know HVIP typically does not look at the TCO and the fuel price, but this is a technology that clearly truck fleets want this technology, but they have to be able to afford it with fuel. So the formula allows you to see what the overall impact is to that fleet and whether or not it's feasible or sustainable for them to purchase fuel cell trucks.
Thanks, Jamie. I really appreciate your
Yeah,
feedback.
no, I know. I said a lot, but this is really important material to deal with the sustainability of making this technology work.
Absolutely. And thanks for the comments you
Yeah.
provided in writing, and I'm sure you'll have follow-up conversations. All right, next we have Bruce Flom. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I'm about to unmute you.
Yes, good afternoon. Nicole, thank you for hosting us. Ender, good to connect with you again. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share information. I'd understood from staff conversations last week, and you mentioned it in your intro, that there's TCO is part of the inputs that you're looking for. And I'd understood that you guys are thinking about this on a TCO relative to the MFAC, which was looking at the cost per mile of the vehicle on a diesel versus a electron basis. But that seemed to be a slightly different approach than you had described in previous meetings. And so I just wonder if you could provide some color so we can understand a bit more detail the methodology that you're thinking about here, whether that's an alternative structure you're considering, and we're happy to provide more context on TCO, much of the way that Jamie did for the Class 6s, but just anything you can share with us in terms of your thought process and the methodology would be helpful.
Well, we're looking at incremental costs, so I don't think that's changed from our discussions, Bruce, prior to this. And I think the input that you provided has been useful in respect to that. I think you folks have talked to Peter and I pretty extensively about that. In terms of what Jamie's discussing, he's talking about fuel costs that are pretty associated with hydrogen, right? And so that's slightly a different calculus than maybe the TCO that we were looking at. So I think that's where his input was additive. I don't want to go into pretty detailed stuff here with, like cost TCO numbers, but we can definitely meet again, Bruce. And feel free to reach out again, and we can have further discussions about kind of in-depth structure and what we're looking at in terms of calcs.
Appreciate that. Happy to provide color on TCO as it relates to Class 6, both electrons and diesel, and just make sure we're giving you as wide a data set as you can take in to factor in your calculations.
Yeah, I mean, for a certain amount, our carb inventory is pretty sophisticated in terms of vehicle annual mileage, and looking at different costs for fuels. And so, we do have a lot of expertise here in carb for that, but we always recognize other inputs as well. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Lynette Sapienza. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, Lynette Sapienza, Dome Partnership. Thank you for having us today. And my question is we have written to request sharing of how the calculations are being made. Is that something you can provide so that we fully understand what is going into the calculations and what is changing? So that would be the first question is, I know we've made a written request, so is that something you can provide to those of us on here that have asked for it? And secondly, I know you guys are still looking for input. What is the best way or your preferred method? Is it just set up a meeting with you, reach out? I know this forum is not the forum to have an in-depth discussion, so.
Lynette, what agency do you work for again? Or
Dome
entity?
partnership.
Okay, so I don't believe have you reached out to me directly?
Someone from our team has, yes.
Okay, so I would continue to just reach out to me directly or Young, and we can set some time up.
And I think the next slide, Lynette, will contain Inder's contact information. And so, yeah,
Okay.
so you can go ahead and email him. We can set up that meeting.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, next is Tim McCrae. Just a reminder, folks, please state your name and affiliation.
Thank you. My name is Tim McRae, MCRAE. I'm with the California Hydrogen Business Council. Inder, I just wanted to get a little bit more insight on how the MSRP cap is going to be decided upon. And I'm particularly thinking about applications where there are very few market participants that are providing trucks, and I'm trying to think through, if somebody says, well, this is where we're setting the price, and then you say, well, the MSRP cap is, $100,000 below that. Are we looking at a potential situation where people aren't able to access the funds because there aren't trucks available at that number?
I think, when you think about where we're trying to go in terms of voucher tables and overall structure of the program, we are trying to look at each individual class and type of truck. I think that we're recognizing that different classes have different challenges, different market conditions, and so overall blanket policies don't really kind of fit for every type of truck. And so I think that would be something that we would be continuing to consider in terms of an MSRP cap, right? So we'd be looking at Class 8 fuel cells, Class 8 BEVs, transit, and school bus, and so forth, and looking at each one of those. But again, this is early in the development of an MSRP cap, so would like any kind of written comments or any kind of suggestions that stakeholders might have. Please feel free to send that our way, and we will definitely review it as we work towards developing a policy.
Okay, I'll work with our members to see if there's something that we can submit to you. Thank you again.
Mhm.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Sam Versalati.
Thank you. Yes, Sam Versalati with Terawatt Infrastructure. First, we wanted to say we strongly support the inclusion of large fleet eligibility in the program, as well as the removal of requirements like the bulk purchase requirement, scrappage, and other items that make purchasing these vehicles a bit more onerous for all fleets. On the MSRP cap, we wanted to also point out that tariffs are not only impacting vehicles that are wholly imported, they also impact the cost of components that are assembled here in the United States. So we recommend an approach to MSRP caps that is dynamic and allows for changes to reflect the equally dynamic tariff environment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Next, we have Adolfo Siqueiros. All right.
Good I guess afternoon. I'm the fleet manager for Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And we have a fleet of about 700 vehicles up here. So it's quite robust. Going by the ZEV rules for medium heavy trucks, we understand that like electric pickup truck, like a Lightning with the extended battery, goes over the 8,500 GVW requirement. However, when it comes to looking at vehicles that hit that milestone number 2 that's coming up in 2027, a vehicle like that is not going to comply with requirements that we have, like for a 1 ton or a half ton, I mean, 1.5 ton type of medium vehicle. So wondering if something like the series hybrid technology coming out is going to be included in, participating in HVIP.
So we don't really have control over what manufacturers apply to HVIP, but if there's particular solutions that fit the requirements of HVIP in terms of eligibility and program, up by OEM, we would encourage folks to apply and see if those options fit within the parameters described in the HVIP implementation manual in terms of eligibility.
Yeah, it's not a new technology like the Chevy Volt had it for years, but
Yeah, traditionally we don't really fund
they've been,
hybrids.
pardon me?
We don't really fund hybrids. We fund ZEV technology. So without knowing very much about the particular technology, I couldn't really speak to it. But feel free if there's a particular element, we could definitely send that to our manufacturer OEM eligibility team and see if it would be something that would qualify. But the OEM would need to request and submit an application to.
Yeah, understood, because it's going to be a game changer for us. And again, like I said, something like a half ton high GVW pickup, it's not going to cut it for our type of application. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, next we have Tom Van Heat.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Inder and team, for the presentation. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but can you just refresh us on the goals, the rationale behind considering new OEM eligibility vetting, the vehicle testing, and the MSRP caps? That would just help inform our feedback to the agency and to staff on those concepts.
Yeah, the MSRP cap was discussed at the board meeting when there was a discussion about market pricing and ZEV pricing, and it was kind of a direction from the board to look into developing an MSRP cap to make sure that our incentives aren't artificially inflating prices of ZEV vehicles. And so that's where that direction came from. And as we kind of work through what that looks like, we kind of have to work within each class and see what makes sense to ensure that, the market isn't being adversely affected by incentives. So I think that's where that kind of rationale is coming from. As far as what was the second part to that, where the vetting of OEMs is coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So in terms of the vetting of OEMs, I think there is a desire to make sure that the products that are available in HVIP meet a certain level of quality and fleet expectation, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity that CARB has uniquely with its resources at the Riverside facility and so forth, to make sure that vehicles are of a certain standard that can meet actual fleet use.
Okay. That's helpful. Thanks. I realized I forgot to state my affiliation. I'm with Rivian. I'm Senior Policy Advisor for Environmental Matters. And just really quickly, thanks for that. We'll certainly have feedback on these concepts, and on the MSRP cap in particular. Just want to share that we certainly agree that pricing transparency and cost discipline are really important objectives for the medium and heavy duty market. But as we can share with you further offline, we think there are perhaps other ways to get at that goal that might be better suited to the current macroeconomic climate affecting cost drivers in the industry. So we'll follow up. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Next we have Christian Corby. Once again, folks, please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon. My name is Christian Corby, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director at the California Electric Transportation Coalition, or CALITC. Hi, Nicole and Inder. Nice to see you both. And really appreciate the presentation today. I just want to reiterate that CALITC really supports CARB's continued look at the incentive amounts to make sure that they meet the needs of fleets out there. Right now, we don't have any stick pushing fleets to convert to zero emission vehicles. and HVIP is going to be the main carrot that's going to drive people, convince them to switch. So really need those incentive amounts to be correct coming into the end of this year and next year. And then as we've said as well, providing a long-term schedule for what you think the incentive amounts will step down to over time, I think will encourage fleets to convert sooner rather than later, so they can take advantage of the larger incentive amounts. And that's another way to ensure some downward pressure on pricing. With the MSRP caps, I definitely support Rivian's comments. I think I don't know if it's necessarily premature to consider MSRP caps in all weight classes, but I would definitely think some of those markets are not ready yet for MSRP caps. So I think maybe it would be prudent to consider trialing MSRP caps in certain market segments, or as Rivian mentioned, trying other strategies to drive costs down. And then on the let's see, what was the other thing you guys were asking about? On the OEM participation and vetting and testing. I think my only question there was whether that was going to be for new market participants or market participants with relatively shorter maybe lifetimes, so they don't have the proven record, or is this going to be kind of an industry-wide testing and vetting? Because it does seem like there's certainly some OEMs out there that have proven their quality. So just kind of wondering if this is like an entry level process, or is this something that would be industry wide?
I can speak to a little bit to this, and please chime in, Ursula or Luis, if you'd like to speak to it, because their group kind of manages it, this part of the program. But the thinking currently would be industry wide to provide some consistency across all folks participating. Luis or Ursula, did you guys want to have anything else you wanted to add on that one?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's correct, Ender. It would be industry wide, and what we're just looking to achieve here is a robust process that provides a positive experience for end users. So it would be across the board there.
And again, this is for all of these policies that have been kind of brought to you in this particular meeting. We are really soliciting stakeholder feedback here in the development of it. And so, especially with some of these, like the MSRP cap and the manufacturing evals, we want to hear from stakeholders in these industries and take on that feedback and as we develop the policy.
Thanks. Next, we have Lisa McGee. Again, please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Lisa McGee, Tom's Truck Center. I would echo on the OEM cap. I think we need to definitely dig into what that means, because when we look at the entire program, while we've had good traction, we've also had a lot of those vouchers have existed with OEMs that have no longer exist. So I think looking at what that market means on a volume basis can have a huge impact on what it takes for these OEMs to deliver these trucks and for them to stay in business as well. Also concerns with what we're really going to be doing with the rebates amounts going forward. We spent a lot of years recently looking at these prices and have come to the conclusion that the rebates do matter as it relates to influencing the market to be able to make this choice. And HVIP has been so excellent at not having a scrapping program. Scrapping programs really require the fleets to have a confidence in the technology and ensuring them they've got access to fuel. And so we're just not there yet. So I'm hoping that we can continue to have more conversations about the rebates. When I look at the Class 5 population, we've got from a model year 25 to 2023, 95,000 of vehicles that are registered, and we have an average VMT of 15,000 miles a year and a life of 6.5. And I want to make sure we're looking at the used truck price. That used truck price on that truck today is $30,000. And so that will also, I'm hoping that on your incremental that you're looking at the used truck price on the Class 8. We've got an average VMT of 50,000 miles, an age of 7 years, with that age climbing. And the used truck price today is $70,000. We've got 700 redeemed trucks through the program and about 180 on the Class 5. On the Class 5, you've got 50% of those trucks that are actually with extinct OEM. So my hope is that we're looking at the average age and cost of these used trucks. Currently, those trucks are aging and growing right now in the market. So would love to continue to have conversations with how we can continue to provide you with what you need. I don't think it's really still clear to us as stakeholders, the methodology. Are you using 50% or what are you using in the methodology? And what else are you considering as the driving factors?
Okay, Inder, I'll give you a chance to respond, but we have about 12 more commenters and less than 15 minutes. And so I'm going to put a 2-minute cap on responses, and maybe Inder, we can't get to everything, but we can do some follow-ups. So I'll pass it to you. But folks, going forward, I'm going to cap it at 2 minutes so we can get to as many of you as possible.
Yeah, Lisa, we appreciate your comments, and I think we've heard them previously, and we also have some time set up. So I think we'll have ample opportunity to kind of speak one-on-one about your data. But if there are, again, for all full stakeholders, we are still soliciting written comments, and I think we've been gotten a lot from the folks that have talked today. So we kind of are incorporating all of that into our policy decisions going forward. But I'll turn it off.
Thanks, Inder. Next, we have Terry Maines. So again, 2 minutes.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Terry Maines, and I'm with Orange EV and a Grants and Strategic Initiatives Manager. And I'm actually curious about slide 13, where you say that CARB is working on testing plan to evaluate zero-emission trucks at the Riverside Lab as prerequisite for HVIP eligibility. Could you tell me a little bit more about when you say working on a plan, what that plan looks like and what it might entail, and how we can talk to you about helping build that out a bit?
Yeah, I will hand this off to Luis or Ursula, if you guys want to comment.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. Yeah, so what we're looking to do is just using our resources there in our Riverside laboratory to be able to test some vehicles for HVIP eligibility. We're early stages, so welcome the feedback from industry. And it's not up on the screen, but our HVIP inbox, it's hvip@arb.ca.gov. We can send any feedback that you have there. Yeah, we can set up meetings and discuss.
And if you reach out to me, I'll make sure you guys get in contact with Luis or Ursula if that
Great.
is the area of need.
Right. Thanks. Next, we have Adam Browning. Again, state your name and affiliation.
Thanks, Adam Browning with Forum Mobility. I actually had a similar question on the lab testing. I'm just curious, what problem that's trying to solve. Like, what is the issue that's trying to fix? The other question I had was around the HVIP program as well, and we've provided comments to that, the structure and the incentive amounts, including a recommendation around including potentially a third sort of size classification in between the small and the large. I think that would be super helpful. And I'm wondering if that is still potentially in the running. And then finally, I'm just wondering if you have any information about the reopening of the HVIP funding window with the funds from the unredeemed vouchers, if there's any new news that you can share on the timing of that as well.
As far as reopening, I think we're still on schedule from what we've said previously, so early Q3. So news should be coming up relatively soon on when we'll be reopening. As far as testing, I think the goal is just to make sure that fleets are getting the product that is useful for them. And so we've had some issues with that have raised concerns. And, so I think that's where that issue is coming from. The middle question, I missed a little bit of it. What were you asking about again? I'm sorry.
It was a proposal of a third category of a fleet size between the small and the no cap at
Oh,
all.
specifically, we've heard inputs that for public fleets that they may need additional funding, and so they don't really fit into a small business category. And so we're looking at potentially creating a category just for public fleets that may have unique challenges, just like transit fleets would. So I
Got it.
think,
Thank you. And then just lastly, to close, I want to reiterate, really support your efforts in making incentive program, market oriented towards market transition and trying to bring down prices. And I also agree with in this tariffed environment, it is really challenging and quite difficult. And would just urge additional flexibility and caution in this unforeseen moment as well. So
Thanks,
just wanted to
Adam.
lift that up. Thank you.
All right, next we have Claire Bachman.
Hi, this is Claire Bachman with Exos Trucks. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I want to flag some concerns around the current incentive structure and timing. First off, Bright Drop's MSRP Class 3 is about $70,000 with a $40,000 small fleet incentive as proposed with the current table, with a $30,000 gap. Exos, step van, and other battery electric step vans average MSRP around $230,000, but the proposed incentive is only $90,000, leaving a $140,000 gap. That discrepancy doesn't reflect proportional support across similar vehicle types. Meanwhile, we're experiencing real operational impacts. We can't create new sales orders until the current or upcoming voucher amounts are finalized, and we can't revise over 40 existing sales orders with pending vouchers. I appreciate that over the past 2 months, CARB has welcomed additional data for its incremental cost model. We expected final voucher amounts to be shared today, but now we're hearing it may be weeks out. My main question is, what is currently causing the delay in finalizing the voucher tables? Is it data validation, internal review, or stakeholder alignment? More transparency would be helpful here, and it would allow us stakeholders to help you work through any blocks that you're currently experiencing trying to finalize these amounts.
well, first, Claire, we've received significant feedback from stakeholders such as yourselves, and so we're taking that into our analysis and running that up our chain of management to get a final decision. So that's part of the delay there. I had a curious question. You mentioned that this is delaying purchase orders. Are you taking purchase orders before HVIP reopens?
No, we are not able to do that right now
Yeah,
because we don't want to be in a situation where we can't accurately quote a voucher amount, and understanding that could change. We don't want to be in a situation where the purchase order is non-binding or not tied to an actual order.
Yeah, I mean, as always, we always want to encourage folks, we will be signaling when we reopen HVIP, and I think at that point we would have voucher amounts. We would give significant time before folks could get into the purchase queue. But part of HVIP is making sure that folks are kind of making the decision based off the incentive. So it's just curious that folks would be trying to engage in purchase orders prior to HVIP or even being reopened, and knowing if the amount of money that would be available. So that's why I brought that up.
Yeah, and I'm sure that that is occurring for certain companies, but we are not in a position to do that because we don't want to overpromise or underpromise to a customer.
Yeah,
So
and
the sooner we can get a voucher amount, the better.
Yeah, we will. So, as always, we'll release the IM. We'll have voucher amounts. We'll have significant time before we reopen HVIP. It will be notified. Folks will have plenty of time to market and, get folks ready to make purchase orders. But, as always, we'd encourage folks to wait until we reopen to get purchase orders actually signed, right? So.
All right. Thanks. All right, next we have Chris Brown, and I know we were going to wrap at 2, but since we got a little bit of a late start, we're going to push it by 5 minutes, so we'll go till 2:05, but still 2 minutes and under, folks. Chris? Sorry, Chris Brown.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Outstanding. So I want to make just a couple of notes, and I'll be fairly concise. I think that there's been a sufficient amount of conversation here at ASLMR about the price of the new vouchers until things have been fully vetted with all stakeholders. When it comes to HVIP itself, its original name, the word hybrid was was really contemplated. It is a critical bridge technology, and Harbinger Motors is a medium duty electric manufacturer that does have a range extender, and notes from municipalities about range anxiety, all these things, applications where um, the batteries themselves can be charged to run things like a sewer pump, things like that on board. It may not be the perfect solution, but until battery density improves, those vehicles will never change over to a battery electric vehicle. The second thing is I do think that it is important to vet the OEMs and these vehicles that are participating in HVIP due to some of the quality issues in the past. But I would encourage the consideration of utilizing other certified labs to prevent backlog and ensure that the intended purpose of onboarding people into HVIP is still possible, so that way they can sell vehicles. If folks are waiting for the lab to be available for testing, that is going to be a challenging situation to put businesses in when they're trying to sell to customers. And the last thing here is when it comes to the HVIP vouchers, I'm hoping that you will consider utilizing a two-phase voucher disbursement approach, one in particular with the medium duty space at the point of sale, and then perhaps a second payment at post upfit. So that would help improve cash flow for dealerships by partial reimbursement at the point of sale. That reduces financial strain, which upfitting can be a lengthy process.
Hey, Chris, please wrap up your comments. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. Well, you heard what I had to say, so thank you very much.
Yeah, and if there's additional questions or concerns, and this goes for anyone that's left in the queue, feel free to send us an email and reach out to us, and we'll definitely take on board whatever comments you guys present to us.
Yeah, apologies, folks. Just trying to get as many in as we can. All right, next we have Michael Pimentel.
Yes. Thank you, folks. Hope you can hear me. I'm Michael Pimentel, Executive Director of the California Transit Association. We represent 220 member organizations across the nation, including 85 transit and rail agencies in the state. I do want to just show general support for re-examination of the voucher amounts for transit in particular. You've heard other speakers speak to the issues from the tariffs. I'll note that the supply chain issues that have been increasing the purchase costs of our zero-emission buses has been in place for several years now, and we have been highlighting the need to reevaluate and reconfigure up the voucher amounts to address what are higher upfront costs for these technologies. I want to note that request is becoming perhaps even louder because beginning on January 1, 2026, the sales and use tax exemption that we have had in place for the purchase of zero-emission buses will lapse. And so immediately agencies are going to see an increase in the purchase costs of their zero-emission buses of between $50,000 and $70,000. So I'm not necessarily making a play that all of that get covered within the HVIP voucher amount increase, but it is something that is potentially a challenging factor. And then finally, just want to show support for the continuation of the transit set aside as proposed. I've not yet had an opportunity to discuss with my members whether we think the amount that has been ascribed is appropriate, but certainly I do appreciate conceptually that direction. So thank you.
And thank you, and appreciate the comments.
Thanks, Michael. Okay. All right, next we have Robert Cruz.
Thank you, Robert Cruz, Zero Knox. I have a question regarding the currently proposed HVIP vouchers. The amounts there and how retrofits are contemplated, and how do the numbers change for retrofits? And then also a second question on if there are any set-asides for tribes and tribal entities.
So set-asides are implemented within the current voucher system. So that's where the base vouchers and the some small business vouchers kind of taken over all plus-ups and set-asides. So we're kind of going away from set-asides, doublings, all kinds of plus-ups, and getting to a much more simpler table. So that's what to look forward there. And in terms of conversions, nothing is changing in terms of conversions. Conversions are going to continue to be up to 75% of the base voucher amount as implemented last year in the funding plan.
Great. Okay, Richard Blaustein.
Yes, thank you very much for this very informative webinar. My name's Rich Blaustein. I'm a journalist with Climate Brief, published by the Continuing Education of the Bar of California. I have a question for the unredeemed or the to-be redeemed vouchers. Is there a total amount for that? And that's the third quarter. And does that indicate that the Hino settlement will pay in part for the fourth quarter and then for 2026? And the last part, does that funding from Hino and from perhaps DGRF indicate a fully operationalized HVIP for the coming year?
Okay, two parts to that. Part is so it's an ongoing cancellation process, right? So we don't have a final number available that we will reopen with in September. So that's previously allocated money. And so that will be open as soon as those cancellations go through, and we kind of get a tally, we'll figure out what's left and then reissue with that money available. The Hino settlement money is actually going to be for next year. And so that'll be a final decision on that allocation will happen in the November board meeting. And then based off that decision, we'll get that funding available early next year. As far as what's a full funding of HVIP, HVIP really is intended to always have available funding, throughout the year. And so because people make purchase decisions on their needs, not when funding is available. And so the intent of HVIP is to always have money available for fleets. I don't know if that will happen with what we're getting from HVIP from the Hino settlement, but that's what fully funded to HVIP means for us, is to always have funds available for fleets when they need it, so they can make the decision to transfer technologies.
All right, I think we might have time for one or two more. So Brett Stevens, please state your name and affiliation.
Yeah, thank you. Brett Stevens with Daimler Trucks North America. It's something kind of piqued my interest when talking about the MSRP caps, and I think it sounds like a hypothesis that the incentives were adversely impacting prices or transactional prices for the vehicles. And just curious if there's like evidence of this, or we're testing that hypothesis. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of how MSRPs work in the commercial vehicle industry. Published MSRP is typically a line by line published list price for the components, and the actual transaction price is typically 15 to 40% less than that. That is controlled by the dealer. Dealer franchise laws prohibit OEMs from price controlling in that sense. So the nature of those discounts reflect in volume, timing, commonality of the specs. It's very incongruent to a lot of people's understanding based on a passenger car centric view. So I would strongly encourage CARB to test that hypothesis with dealers. Try to buy a truck. See what it costs. We're in a non-HVIP world right now, so you'll get a very unadulterated view of what that actual cost is from the dealer.
Thanks, Brett. I really appreciate your input. I think we have time for one more. So Esther Hurtado.
Thank you, Esther Hurtado, A to Z Bus Sales. My question is very simple. For the HVIP that is opening in September, is there any feedback still being received or reviewed? Any comments that we could put in for this new implementation, or has that window closed already?
Well, we are still making final decisions. So if you have input, please feel free to send that to us.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. I guess with that being so short, we'll have Jamie Hall go next, and then we'll have to cut folks off. But we have taken note of your name, and we'll follow up in writing. Jamie Hall, please state your name and affiliation.
Thanks so much, Nicole, Ender, and team. Jamie Hall, I'm Policy Director for EV Realty. I want to say HVIP continues to be one of the most important programs in the country to support electrification of this sector. So we really appreciate your ongoing openness to adjust to changing market realities. Most importantly, we support the inclusion of large fleets. This is really important as these are the companies that are going to help us scale. I'm also really happy to hear that you're still taking input on voucher amounts and looking just at Class 8. I'd argue the base amounts are too low. As customers tell us, 80,000 will not really move the needle for them, and arguably the small business amounts at 336 might be a bit high. And like Adam at Forum, we think a third tier is warranted. This would be a tier for medium-sized fleets. So I guess if you're creating a separate tier for public fleets as well, it might be a fourth, but trying to break the market into small, medium, large rather than just small and large. And then finally, we see a need to put downward pressure on prices. MSRP caps are potentially one way to do that, but as many people have noted, it's pretty tricky right now in this ever-changing, really uncertain tariff environment. So definitely would, if you're going to go in that direction, need to figure out how to do it and avoid unintended consequences. I don't pretend to have the answer, but just want to note this is a tricky time to bring in an MSRP cap.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jamie. All right, folks. So we didn't get to 5 of you, but we've taken note of your names and we'll follow up. Appreciate it. Really quickly, I'm going to hand it to, I think, maybe Andrea or someone from the team to make a quick announcement about some of the translation services that we're offering during this call.
We just, everybody, if you could have a moment of patience, we're going to give the translators who need to swap a quick moment to swap, particularly in the Punjabi translation room. So folks, let's give it a second for our new translator to come in and give the other first translator a break. Thank you.
All right, maybe we can get the slides lined up for, I believe, ISEF is next. And we'll give it just a minute. And I've lowered all hands that were up before. If you had your hand up for ISEF, feel free to raise it again. All right, Brianna, think you're good to go.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am Brianna Rocha, and I'm the implementation lead for the Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Project, or ISEF for short. Next slide. Yes. ISEF is a set-aside within the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, HVIP, designed to support small fleets and individual owner-operators in accessing zero-emission vehicles through innovative solutions such as all-inclusive leases, truck-as-a-service agreements, short-term rentals, and other creative support mechanisms. Small fleets with 20 or fewer medium and heavy-duty vehicles and that have a revenue of less than 15 million are eligible. Government agencies and nonprofits are exempt from this revenue cap. ISEF is temporarily closed due to an exhaustion of funds driven by high demand. It is anticipated to reopen in early fall of 2025, following the release of an updated appendix and system processing updates. For more information on the program, you can go ahead and search the HVIP website. That is californiahvip.org/ISEF. Next slide. For the upcoming funding plan, staff is not proposing policy changes. However, staff does propose an allocation of $5 million from the Hino settlement appropriation to continue to support these innovative projects. Over the last year, staff has explored new solutions to barriers that small fleets face when adopting zero-emission vehicles, such as access to insurance for heavy-duty ZEVs, and how to potentially provide advanced fleet management services for when an entity incorporates a ZEV into their fleet. In addition, staff will continue exploring the potential design for a used truck voucher pilot concept for the fiscal year 2025 to 2026. The pilot concept would leverage and build upon the broad portfolio of creative, innovative solutions already in ISEF. Staff held a work group meeting on these concepts on June 13th, 2025, so that information can be found on our CARB website. A used vehicle voucher program could help foster the market by reducing vehicle costs and increasing the supply of vehicles. It would also allow CARB to collect valuable information to understand challenges as the market develops and to also inform future policies. Consumer protection will be prioritized by monitoring vehicle pricing and requiring minimum warranties and certifications. In addition, insurance assistance and ongoing fleet management would help fleets successfully adopt these vehicles to their operations. Staff anticipates further collaboration with industry experts and stakeholder engagement over the next 1 to 2 years to develop the concept before implementing the pilot. Next slide.
All right.
Go ahead,
Nope.
Nicole.
All right, great. So just as before, folks, we're going to open the floor for questions. If you're using Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. If you're calling into Zoom, please press #2. All right, with that, let's see who we've got. All right, starting with Dolene Jones. Name and affiliation.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Darlene Jones. My affiliation is my corporation, Abundance Worldwide Enterprises. And my question today is, and I had to drop off the call earlier because my battery died on my tablet, but I'm back now, and we're trying to purchase this sweeper, electric sweeper, hybrid version of an electric sweeper and diesel, or electric diesel sweeper with natural gas. I wanted to know what, under the sweeper trucks, are we considered heavy duty, or is it the amount of vehicles I have in my fleet? Like, do I apply for this ISEF, or is it a heavy duty piece of equipment? That's where I'm kind of confused about this whole thing. And thank you.
Yeah, I imagine a sweeper is over 14,000 pounds, so it would be categorized as a medium heavy duty vehicle. So we would count all your vehicles towards that fleet size cap of 20 or less.
So I think maybe it's worth noting, so you have HVIP standard, which maybe Inder can speak to the fleet requirements there, and ISEF is for a fleet of 20 or fewer. So a bit of both. But Inder, do you want to briefly touch on what fleet sizes we're allowing in HVIP these days? Or not? Oh, here we go.
Can you repeat that question again? What was the question?
What fleet sizes are we allowing into HVIP now? I know we changed that this May. I just wanted to make sure it came from you and not me.
All sizes. So there's
Okay,
no
great.
limitation on all fleets are open.
Okay, great. So you have two options, HVIP standard, and then there's ISEF, which is smaller. Thanks for your question. Next, we have Erica.
Nicole, let
Go
me
ahead.
just clarify one thing.
Sure.
So to clarify, HVIP does offer straight purchases, while on the ISEF side, there would be a third party involved in the transaction, which is the provider. These entities provide either leases, rentals, or truck as a service agreements. So it's an alternate to option if you're not interested in purchasing directly.
Another resource you might consider, and for anyone on this call who wants to know where to start, we do offer a service called Cal Fleet Advisor. We'll try and figure out how to drop that into the chat, and it's a great resource to figure out what incentives are available and how to start planning for your fleet to transition. All right, now we'll move on to Erica Baker.
Hi, Erica Baker with Model 1 Commercial Vehicles. My first question is, When would this settlement funding become available? Do you have a month or a quarter of next year, or is it just anytime next year? My second question is, are you still exploring that idea of a voucher certificate for Class 2 vehicles where purchasers would kind of take a certificate and then shop around for the Class 2B vehicles? Thank you.
I'm going to turn these questions over to Inder, if you're available, Inder. These seem like HVIP questions.
Sure. Yeah, this is Young. So the Class 2B certificate, that's something we are still working on process, but the idea is that the fleet would be able to apply and like what you just said, shop around to different HVIP eligible dealers.
And I think you also asked Erica about when the settlement funds will be available. If you're are you referencing the HENO funds?
Yes.
Okay, so those are part of this year's budget. So that will be for it'll be a fiscal 2025-2026 appropriation that would be implemented after the funding plan is adopted in November. So separate from the September funds.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Next we have Lisa McGee.
Oh, hi, yes. I just wanted to state that definitely support the funding program as it relates to the 5 million. And also on the used truck pilot project, you said that you're trying to foster market by reducing the cost. So I think that more that we can get more information from how we would know different than what the new trucks are, how we continue to service those trucks, support them by the dealerships and or others that are out there. I'm not sure how you guys are going to go about this with garage services. I know that you only require one. So I think thinking that through on the services side, the spare parts side for the experience to go good. And for the insurance, I'm kind of curious to know what your plans are. Are you going to increase the rebate amount associated with ISEF? Or are you still keeping it at the proposed amount? Is that still running into this particular funding program with the new proposed amounts? And then I think it'd be nice if this was aligned like it is with the new Carl Moyer to include taxes, warranty, insurance, and transport fees for the small fleet pilot projects.
Okay, so I heard a few questions there. As for the used truck voucher pilot concept, we're still in the initial stages of gathering information. Most recently, we had that June 13th work group where we did get comments and we're still getting them through email. So that concept would still be in development. We anticipate a year or two before even launching the pilot. So it would more likely reflect new voucher amounts or voucher amounts specific to the pilot a year or two from now. As for the voucher amounts right now, which HVIP spoke on earlier, we would align with HVIP given that ISEF is a set aside of the larger HVIP program. And I believe there was one more question, Lisa. Can you remind me which one it was?
I was just making a statement on the insurance program. If you guys would consider what you're doing with what's going on in Carl Moyer with allowing for taxes, warranty, insurance, and transport fees, and increasing the voucher amounts associated with that or the eligibility like you did similar to the first year.
Yeah, the insurance, we're still in the early stages. I know there has been collaboration with the Department of Insurance in order to just assess the market and see where we're at. But we're open to consideration. So that's a good comment, Lisa. And we'll definitely keep it in mind when discussing the idea for the insurance option.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mike Macias.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Mike Macias with TCI. I know that we are a ISEF provider and we can definitely do, participate in the ISEF program. But I did have a question that didn't get brought up for the HVIP side. for standard HVIP, I know during the last meeting, it was discussed about allowing rental and leasing companies to participate in standard HVIP. Did that ever, did we ever get an answer for that?
Right. Hey, Mike. So for leasing companies, yeah, that's allowable. That's going to be something that's going to be reflected in the implementation manual. And, just to reiterate, we'll have that implementation manual released prior to our Q3 launch date.
Thank you, Jan. Appreciate it.
All right. Our last commenter is Koan Crawford.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and affiliation.
Okay, my name is Kawan Crawford. I'm with Sojourn X Enterprises. So my company is actually in the startup phase, and I was interested to make sure that we are still eligible for these grant or incentives. Another question was, when would the open date exactly be? I heard September, I believe, for the HVIP. Does that also include ISEF as well? A combination question with that is, with the purchasing price of the truck, is the upfitting cost included in that, or it's only going to cover the truck?
Yeah, so on your question regarding your eligibility, I would encourage you to contact our program administrator, which is CalSTART, and their information can be found on the California HVIP.org website. When you Google, it's like the first website that appears. And also, as Nicole mentioned earlier, we do have Cal Fleet Advisor, which is like that very initial step that we try to guide fleets towards if you're interested in just learning all the options that are out there. I encourage you to go to CFA. And as for reopening, we anticipate to reopen early fall of 2025, most likely following HVIP reopening. And we would also be releasing our appendix revision with plenty of time for the public to review prior to reopening the program again. And did I miss something?
Yeah,
I'm
hi.
not mistaken.
Yeah, just so ISEF is a set aside within HVIP, but so all those funding links, so from like the cancellations that we mentioned earlier, whatever cancellations, that's a natural attrition too that happens, those funds would go back to where those, let's say if they came from ISEF, started as an ISEF voucher and is canceled, it would go back to ISEF. And if it was an HVIP standard, it'd go back there. If it was a transfer, it would go back into that one. So that's why we're still working out those finer details. But when the release happens, all those different funding pots would be open at the same time.
So to clarify that, when we submit the application, it's kind of determined by whatever's on the application as to where it will be allocated to, whether it's going to go under the HVIP or the ISEF. You guys will determine that. And then my other question was that when I purchase the truck, I'm also looking to have it upfitted. Do I do a quote for the truck price as well as the upfitting price, and the voucher will cover that, or will it only cover the truck?
So that kind of depends on what kind of truck that you're doing. So typically, like, here, I'm going to give you a really terrible, bad example. Like, if you want a flat screen TV in the back of your truck and you call that an upfit, that's not going to be covered. So those upfitting costs need to be itemized.
Okay. Okay, no problem. And then I heard you saying the ISF is following the HVIP opening date. So does that mean it's coming after, or I also heard you say like it's combined. So when the HVIP opens, ISF is also open.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, ISEF would open within a week. We anticipate within a week of HVIP reopening.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and one other thing to add, I know Brianna mentioned this earlier, but ISEF is really focused on creative solutions to help smaller fleets. So if you were just wanting to purchase a truck, going through HVIP would be the better path for you. But if you're interested in something like short-term rentals or leasing, or a truck as a service type of model, and you are a small fleet that's 20 trucks or fewer, ISEF would be the better fit. But again, I highly recommend checking out Cal Fleet Advisor. That's a free technical service or technical assistance program for fleets that are interested in zero emission, or have already purchased zero emission trucks and need some help. And they can also help with figuring out what funding is the best option for you.
Thanks. All right, we actually did end up having one more question in the queue. Peter Walker. Peter Walker, do you want to state your name and affiliation? I've given you the ability to unmute.
Hi, Nicole. Yes, thank you. This is Peter Walker. I'm the managing partner for Global CDFI. We finance purchases by small fleets via the HVIP program. I just want to point out two challenges we have in terms of financing, rolling out more of a robust leasing platform. Is there is a disadvantage to leasing to the lessors because there's the 90-day to release the vehicle to be in compliance, which is not a hurdle if you finance the vehicle, but it is if you lease it. So that just causes challenges with us, and that doesn't follow the same as financing from our standpoint. It just limits the availability to lease more trucks. And then one other thing is the sales tax for the vehicle purchased based upon a pre-voucher cost of the vehicle that is outlined in the implementation manual. I think that also creates challenges. One of the key benefits of leasing is that you can charge sales tax per the sales and use tax guidelines on payments, monthly payments, whereas with kind of the distortion with the what's in the implementation manual versus the net amount. I guess the question is why is that in there? Is that legislative, or can you provide any background on that subject, or happy to follow up offline?
Yeah, I think that would be something I need to look into it and follow up with you offline and the team. Let me see. Unless Andrea or the HVIP team, do you want to comment anything on that?
So in HVIP, so what I'm hearing is your comment is that you would like to see that sales tax would be inclusive of part of the HVIP voucher.
Well, I guess it would give more flexibility to fleets to defer that and make it more affordable, to have more flexibility around that sales tax in terms of how to pay it. And I guess the question is, why is that? Is there some sort of legislative mandate that you are beholden to pay sales tax off the in a lease format off the gross MSRP?
Okay, so let me handle the first part of your question. So in the IM, it is clear that HVIP voucher and HVIP standard does not pay for sales tax. So,
Sure.
And then for ISEF, I think that's consistent, but I'll
Yeah,
go over there.
we don't cover sales tax, only the cost of the vehicle as well.
Just ask a clarifying question to make sure I'm understanding. I think what I'm hearing is you're asking, why don't we allow dealers and manufacturers to reduce the amount of sales tax to say, oh, the vehicle didn't actually cost this much, it costs that much minus the HVIP voucher. So that times whatever percent sales tax should give you what the actual sales tax is. Is that what you're essentially asking?
Sort of, yes. I think not to get too off base here, I know we're pressed for time, but the the implementation manual states that for a specific reason, where there's somewhat of it's somewhat left. If you talk to the CDTFA, there's somewhat of a gray area, and it's just there hasn't been a lot of precedence around this in terms of how it's treated as a whether some type of it's treated as a third party discount because it's a government related third party discount. There's not very much precedent there, but it seems like in the implementation manual, it's very clear that you guys have a stance on that. And the question is why, I guess. Is that legislative or is that another reason that you guys have that in there?
Yeah, I think that that's something we'd have to go back and look and discuss with with the franchise tax board a little bit more. CARB doesn't set rules around sales tax.
Sure.
So to the extent that there is language in the IMs, we'd want to make sure that it was aligning with state regulations and precedents.
All right, thanks, folks. I think we're at time for ISEF. We had one more hand up, so if someone could take a note of who that individual is and follow up with them later. We are going to transition to the core presentation, which I will be providing, and Jessica Monterosa will be taking over for Q&A for me. So if you don't have questions on core, I'm going to just briefly lower your hands. If you do have questions on core at the end, please re-raise them. All right. Good afternoon, folks. So again, my name is Nicole Hutchinson. I'm the lead staff for the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, or CORE. I'll be covering staff's proposal for the fiscal year 25-26 updates to the program. These proposals are part of the broader funding plan development process, and we're here to share concepts, highlight key changes, but mostly gather your input. Oh, just a quick announcement for our Punjabi translators. You're both speaking at the same time, so please coordinate in the chat so only one of you is delivering translation. Thank you. And I'm going to slow down my speech because I talk a little fast and it's not very helpful for our translators. All right, next slide. All right, so for those less familiar, CORE is a first come, first served point of sale voucher incentive program administered by CARB. It is designed to accelerate the deployment of zero-emission off-road equipment by reducing the upfront cost for purchasers. CORE supports a wide variety of equipment types across sectors such as freight, construction, ag, and airport ground support equipment. The program's aim is to support commercial-ready, zero-emission solutions to help California meet its clean air and climate goals. Next slide. Alrighty, so this slide provides a high-level summary of our proposals for this year. We'll dive into each of these in more detail in just a moment, but in brief, what we're proposing is first, we're considering the inclusion of higher weight capacity terminal tractors, specifically over 81,000 GCWR for fiscal year 25-26. These units are critical for port and rail operations, and we've heard strong stakeholder feedback for strong stakeholder support rather for bringing them back into the program. Second, we're reevaluating how we define commercial readiness and manufacturer eligibility. Currently, it's based on proof of sale, but we are exploring alternatives like requiring proof of delivery or an attestation from company executive. The goal is to better protect purchasers and ensure the equipment listed in the core catalog is truly ready for deployment. As always, these are initial staff concepts, so we do welcome your feedback on these proposals and any other program elements you think we should reconsider during this fiscal year. Next slide. Okay, digging into terminal tractors a little bit more. So as outlined in the fiscal year 24-25 funding plan last year, terminal tractors were graduated from the program given their tremendous success and lower total cost of ownership when compared to their combustion counterparts. But the plan did leave room for selective re-inclusion. Specifically, we noted in the funding plan last year that CARB may consider retaining eligibility for higher weight capacity terminal tractors, particularly for those used in ports and intermodal rail yards. Since then, during CORE's work group in May, we received feedback from stakeholders who would like to see us explore this concept further and include terminal tractors over 81,000 pounds GCWR in CORE's catalog for fiscal year 25-26. As I said earlier, these units are critical to freight and port operations where the heaviest duty applications still face cost and infrastructure barriers to electrification. Next slide. April, oh, there we go. Okay. All right. As I said earlier, so staff are considering modifying the definition of commercial readiness. Currently, commercial readiness is defined as having proof of at least one sale. We are contemplating requiring that a vehicle or piece of equipment has had at least one delivery before it can enter the core catalog. This is intended to provide more assurance to purchasers and ensure that the equipment listed in the program is genuinely commercial ready. However, we are open to other ideas on how to achieve this goal. Again, this is the aim is how do we ensure that purchasers are adopting equipment that is ready to be maintained and taken care of throughout the lifetime and project period. One alternative to that approach is a requirement that C-suite executives sign an attestation committing to abide by CORE's terms and conditions in order to bring equipment into the program. Just raising the bar a bit more in terms of accountability to participate in the program. The intent behind both options, as I said, it's to raise the bar and reduce risk. Particularly in cases where early stage manufacturers may cease operations before fulfilling obligations during the project period. That's the aim, but we do welcome alternative ideas. Next slide. Alrighty, quick note on purchaser eligibility. This wasn't on the summary slide because it is a more minor sort of cleanup item. But purchaser eligibility was limited last year to small businesses and public agencies due to budget constraints. For fiscal year 25-26, we are proposing to include nonprofits as eligible purchasers as well. The exclusion of these entities was an oversight during last year's process, and we want to make sure we fold them back into the program. Next slide. All right, with that, I'll hand it to Jessica to help facilitate the Q&A.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jessica Monterosa, and I'll be facilitating the segment of comments and questions. If you want to ask questions and comments, use the raise hand function or press number 2 if calling by phone. And as before, please remember to state your name and affiliation, if any, before asking a question or making a comment. With that, I see one raised hand. Or a few now. I'll start off with Terry Maines. I've muted your mic. You're able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Terry Mannies, and I am the Grants and Strategic Initiatives Manager at Orange EV. We manufacture electric yard trucks. Hi, guys. Thank you for this. A couple of questions and statements. Number 1, yes, please, to 81,000 pound GCWR terminal trucks in ports. Please, please, please. We have a great truck that could do a fantastic job there. And this is a new technology, so we think it's appropriate for CORE. With that in mind also, I'd like to urge you guys to go back, if at all possible, to allowing larger entities, not just small businesses, to be purchasers within CORE, because especially if you look in ports, there's very few of those that are small businesses. So we would urge you guys to consider allowing larger businesses that operate in ports to actually purchase the trucks that we hope you will allow back into the ports. Okay.
Thanks.
That's it for me. I have a feeling some of my other colleagues will be hopping on here shortly with their own statements.
Sure. Thanks, Terry. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you, Terry.
that I did want to acknowledge that we did receive some of that feedback in May as well about the small business eligibility requirement, maybe unintentionally excluding markets that could be delivering meaningful air quality improvements near priority populations and freight facilities. So at ports, at rail yards, because those aren't the folks who are actually operating there. And so appreciate you stating that, and that's something we're looking at. So it's that balancing act between how do we make sure that we're protecting small businesses and also ensuring that we are actually building the markets where we want to see them and ensuring, benefits to EJ communities. And so I appreciate that input, and we might look at things like a small business set aside and stuff like that. But all of that is dependent on continued stakeholder input and how the budget shakes out. But appreciate the input.
Right. Well,
there.
and I do understand that there is something different. I mean, the ports are quasi-public entities anyway, so I'm not even sure that the small business or business even necessarily fits, but there are businesses on the port so anyway, more conversation, please.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Jason Dake. Please state your name and affiliation. You're now able to unmute yourself.
Now I'm unmuted, I believe, correct?
Yes,
my name is Jason Dake. I'm Vice President.
Oops.
Oh, we just lost you.
Oh, I think you can unmute yourself again.
Oh, there we go.
I'm unmuted again. My name is Jason Dake. I'm Vice President of Legal and Regulatory Affairs for Orange EV. Two quick comments. One, on the 81,000 pounds as a limit, so in excess of 81,000 pounds being available for terminals.
As a floor, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
it's the bottom, it's the
Perfect.
lower limit.
Yep.
But the question I have is, the way that slide came in, it looked like there would just be a weight limit, not a use case like rail, intermodal, or ports. Did you intend those to be combined, or did you just intend there to be the weight limit and it had to be in excess of that weight capacity and it could be used in any operating environment?
No, thanks for that question. I think initially we were just kicking around the weight limit, understanding that kind of kicks out on road, but I've since received feedback from you all and actually several other stakeholders adding in hey, we also want to make sure that we're talking about the places where we need these trucks, and so ports and intermodal rail yards. So that's something that we're happy to consider as an additional sort of layer of eligibility.
Yes, okay. That's great. I just wanted that clarification. The second point I would like to make, and this kind of touches on what Terry was talking about in regards to the small businesses and opening up to a larger swath of businesses. And I'm sure you've had conversations on this already numerous times. If it is determined that that CARB or CORD doesn't necessarily want to open up outside of the small businesses, I would propose, even if you don't want to open it up to look to non-small businesses or those type entities, but in particular looking on the ports, I think if you open it up to them but said that entity is only allowed to purchase X number of vehicles in this category, and it would still leave money and availability for those small businesses to actually make purchases and allow that, but it would also still allow that adoption to start on the port. Because again, I can't reiterate to CORE and CARB enough that right now ports, and to a lesser extent rail intermodals, but still there as well, this is still a very nascent technology that is in its infancy of being adopted, and we need to make sure that those avenues for spurring that adoption are not impeded in the ports. And just wanted to reiterate that.
Appreciate that, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Up next, we have Howden Ross, and I'm going to start limiting everybody's comments to about 2 minutes so we can get everybody in. So Howden, I have now unmuted your mic.
Thank you. I'm Hafton Ross, a Chief Project Officer with ITS. We are a marine container terminal in Port of Long Beach. And yes, I can confirm what the people from Orange EV said. If we want to make a difference in the ports, and we are, by the way, located in a disadvantaged community, also close by where people live, that's where we can make a major impact in the air pollution. And the CORE program is actually the most successful and best, simplest way of implementing things. So I implore on you that we need to get the terminal tractors, heavy duty for ports and rail intermodal yard included in the program again. I also want to challenge anyone who said that it was very briefly scooted over in your presentation that the total cost of ownership is favorable for electric yard tractors. I don't know where you got that from. CapEx investment for an electric yard tractor with the necessary infrastructure is about 5 times the cost of an equivalent diesel. And with the kind of electricity rates we have today in California, even the fuel savings are not there. They are not going to pay back. Well, maybe if you assume that such a vehicle lasts 30 years or longer, but in our very heavy operation, a vehicle is burned out, worn to the ground in less than 10 years. And so any payback on investment have to be done in less than 10 years, obviously.
Thanks.
So with that, you are welcome to ask or approach me later if you need any more information on the business cases.
Sure, thanks, Hafton. Really appreciate your comments. I think let's definitely have a follow-up conversation because I am interested in what folks are seeing in terms of TCO. When we calculate TCO, we don't include the capital costs for infrastructure. And we have, information from pilots we've conducted that show that they're more competitive in terms of TCO, but I would welcome a follow-up conversation, just us offline, to see what data you're working with, because always appreciate that.
Well, we just need to realize that there's no implementation of electric vehicles if you don't have the charging infrastructure. So it is a necessary capital expenditure.
Thank you, Hafton. Up next, we have Mike Macias. Now unmuted your mic. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Mike Macias with TCI. Just wanted to comment. I know that it sounds like the yard tractors are back, but only in the only applicable fleets would be small business, correct? And if
Yep.
I also wanted to expand on that to comment and see if that could be opened either now or later to all size fleets, and then the other comment would be allowing other industries outside of ports to be able to participate.
Thanks, Mike. Do you mean outside of ports and rail yards?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do have customers in those areas, but we do have others that are also outside of where territories where we can definitely make an impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to check.
Thank you. Up next, we have Vladimir Karimov. Now unmuted your mic.
Hello, everyone. This is Vladimir with Papay Material Handling. Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Yes.
I have 2 comments. One is about the different OEMs for the same type of equipment with identical technical parameters. It would seem fair to consider different OEMs to receive the same amount, voucher amount, if they have identical technical parameters. Equipment may be different in terms of how it's constructed. It may have a battery that is built in, or it may have a battery that can be installed separately. Same for the charger. It seems fair to have different OEMs but receive the same voucher amount depending on the capacity. If examples are forklifts, terminal tractors, so if there's more input necessary on how it's built, on how the cost structure is done for this equipment, I would be happy to comment and provide more details. I think other participants here would also like to contribute there, but
Sure.
it's a serious thing. And my other question is the same as everyone mentioned about the small business. It's not really a question, but a comment that it looks like from our perspective and what people say that adoption of this technology of more expensive technologies is usually has a higher chance if it's not a small business. But at the same time, considering how the funds are allocated, what I could suggest is look into the statistics. I don't know if that's publicly available, but like previous years for the core distribution, what was the percentage for small business versus not small business? And the same thing for the current year, since it's for small business only, what's the statistics? What is it going to be? And then probably that's what needs to be considered for the implementation for the next year. If there's a huge line of people
Sure.
From small business waiting for funds, then
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off a little bit just because we're going over time. Thanks, Vladimir. Really appreciate that. I'll see if Jessica has anything to add on the equipment eligibility, please. Appreciate your recommendations on the small business stuff. And if you want to follow up an email and we have a meeting, we can talk a little bit more. Or maybe that's the best setting for you to chat with our equipment eligibility staff. I don't know, Jessica, if you had any off the cuff response.
I don't have anything yet, but I think we are welcoming these conversations about restructuring or setting different voucher amounts in the future. So we can follow up with you offline and check what your ideas are. It seems like you have some knowledge about specific equipment types. So we definitely welcome them, and we'll take them offline with Ursula and myself in the future.
Great, thank you.
Madam. Up next, we have James Cummins. We have 9 minutes, so I remind everybody we have 2 minutes per person to speak. And now I muted your mic, James.
Hello, James Cummins with United Airlines. I manage our grants process. My question is related to the narrow body tractors. So the core program stipulates that narrow body and wide body tractors for pushing back the aircrafts are eligible for core funding, but the current language contradicts itself by stipulating a minimum curb weight of 50,000 pounds. That minimum curb weight essentially restricts any narrow body pushback tractor from getting any type of core funding, and it also limits some wide body pushback tractors from getting core funding as well. So just wondering, what is the rationale for that? And is there a possibility to remove that? Because that would be a huge opportunity for all the GSE, ground support equipment operators located in California.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I think the thinking there, and I would take some input on that minimum curb weight if that's the right threshold to set it at or not. But I think the thinking is we didn't want to necessarily bring in any and all narrow body aircraft tugs because we do think that for some of the lighter versions that they didn't need those core incentives. And so when we were soliciting input in May, when we've initially included them, the stakeholders that we met with at the time said, I think it was 50,000 pounds. I can't recall off the top of my head, but the minimum curb weight we established worked for them. But if there are additional considerations we should make, happy to have a more detailed conversation with you about that. But we definitely don't want to open it to any and all. We're looking for more on the heavier end of the spectrum for those narrow body aircraft tugs. But we should have a follow up. I think, yeah, my contact information is on this slide, so would appreciate you reaching out.
Okay, thank you, Nicola.
Because they weren't even included before, but we wanted to open it up, and so it's a newer category for us, so we're still learning.
Thank you, James. Up next, we have Leon Wolf. I've unmuted your mic.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Leon Wolf from Photon Marine, a small startup doing electric outboard propulsion for commercial hovercraft. And thank you to the core team for already approving some of our equipment on the eligible catalog in that category. I wanted to second what the previous speakers were saying about opening things beyond small businesses as well. We have several public entities as well as marinas that are larger businesses that are interested in purchasing zero emission craft. So we're definitely seeing a demand beyond small businesses. In fact, there's very few of those, as previous speakers said, willing to take risk.
I should clarify, because I think I maybe skipped over it in my slides earlier. Public agencies are also eligible, which includes ports. So
great.
apologies, that's my mistake for not making that clear earlier, but carry on.
Yeah, marinas are definitely still potentially larger than 100 people as well, and contain a lot of the small commercial hovercraft that I think is in the scope of core. But my main question is about some of the guidelines, like on commercial readiness, as well as some of the other changes to the program. Do those apply to what I still understand is a period of vouchers that's going to open soon? Or are we talking future voucher periods in 2026?
So this is everything today is relating to for fiscal year 25-26, so next year's launch, not for August. But one thing I'll note for you, since you're in commercial hovercraft, we recognize that delivery times are very different in your space than others. And so I think it's Appendix E, Jessica, or C.
That's correct.
Is where we have our sort of separate guidelines for commercial hovercraft. And so I should, thanks for asking. I should clarify that I don't think we would apply this definition change to that particular category, just given how unique it is. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leon. Up next, we have William Hall. I will unmute your mic. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Bill Hall with Coyote Container, and thank you for hosting this meeting, gathering input. I just have a couple of simple comments. The first one is Buy American. I think there's been a lot of talk about tariffs involved with the cost of these purchases, but shouldn't we follow federal guidelines with regards to Buy American? Even though it is California, it is taxpayer money, and we should try to promote our local companies that produce things and make things for industry. And I think that's just something that we should do as citizens and taxpayers, is we should mandate that these products are made in America. The other comment I had was regarding the large businesses and corporations that want admission to these programs. I would only say that small business is an innovation driver in the United States, and large corporations have means and money at their disposal to do things that small operators like myself just simply couldn't do with regards to these programs. So I think that large corporations could easily hire the small companies to help service their zero emissions needs, and this would create some organic growth rather than funds being dispersed to large corporations who may give it to their shareholders, owners, or whomever else, and especially if they're highly profitable. That's all I really have to input today. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think we have two more. Let's try and power through.
Thank you. Michael Yin, you're now allowed to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Michael Yin, VP of Engineering at Anacorp. We sell power generation products such as MPUs and hybrid MPUs. The core program today seems to incentivize MPUs to have bigger batteries to maximize the incentive amount. The problem is whether the MPU has a 100 kilowatt hour battery or a 500 kilowatt hour battery, you are displacing only one generator with that MPU. I'd like CARB to consider changing the program to focus on removing as many diesel generators as possible. So awarding 5 MPUs with 100 kilowatt hours each displaces 5 diesel generators, as opposed to just one MPU with a very large 500 kilowatt hour battery that again displaces only one generator. So I'd like to suggest CARB to consider looking at the power output of the MPU instead of the kilowatt hours, instead of the battery capacity, since the power output defines the generator it displaces, and we want to displace as many as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. We'll take that feedback back to our eligibility team.
Yeah, we're always looking for input about how to consider measuring, especially MPUs. So we'll take this back to our team and talk about it. And we have our last question, Crystal Reener.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Leon from Restaurant Tree Care. We're a small company up in Half Moon Bay. I noticed that a large portion of this conversation has become a little bit more politicized, which is totally reasonable given the circumstances of this grant program. I guess one thing I would like to advocate, and this is not much of a question, but it is more of a statement that I noticed that there's a lot of lobbyists from bigger corporations and companies coming on here. And more importantly, there's a lot of small businesses that can't be here today to represent themselves. So I just want to advocate that, given the circumstance that a large portion of the economy is supported by small business, hopefully there's good representation for the special interests of businesses who hold the backup of the state and the country. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leon. I appreciate the comment, and I just and I appreciate where you're coming from. I think one thing I'll share is so I'm newer to the core program, but core's legacy is strong in terms of protecting small businesses. We've always historically and still maintain a plus up and increase to the voucher amount. I think it's 15% for small businesses. And historically, we have had set-asides. This year, we're limiting eligibility. I think the conversation about opening eligibility back up beyond small businesses is one that is based on how do we make sure we're achieving our market transformation goals? If at ports, those are larger businesses. How do we ensure that the EJ communities living around them see those benefits? But we want to balance that with how do we also make sure these smaller businesses don't get beat out? And so should we consider any changes to eligibility, we would visit things like those small business set-asides. And I think Vladimir was the one who made the point of should you look at historic small business participation and sort of make that match? And so I think really appreciate your feedback, and that's a balancing act that we're always trying to do with our program. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, I think that wraps up all of our raised hands. Again, if you have any additional questions or follow-up ideas, please email us. And everybody, thank you for your comments and questions today.
Really quick before you get started, Matt, I just wanted to mention for the last commenter, we do have our evening community meetings. Those are once a month. I believe it's the second Tuesday. It might be the third Tuesday of every month, and that is held in the evenings. So people that are working during the day, like when we're having this meeting, they can attend those in the evening and still have their comments heard, give their input. We'll go ahead and drop the link to that in the chat. But I wanted to make sure that was on your radar as well. All right, Matt.
Thank you so much, April, for that reminder. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Williams. I'm an air pollution specialist at the California Air Resources Board, and I'll be presenting on our proposal for the third-party administration of sustainable heavy-duty initiatives for future technology, or SHIFT, formerly known as Advanced Technology Demonstration and Pilot Projects, and also our updates to the long-term heavy-duty investment strategy. Next slide, please. SHIFT was established in 2009. The goal of the program is to accelerate the adoption of pre-commercial technologies into the marketplace and to support commercialized technologies that would benefit from at-scale pilot projects to showcase technical feasibility and economic viability. We're in the early stages of implementing 12 new projects from funding allocated to SHIFT in previous years. In 2023, CARB onboarded a third-party administrator, EPRI, who is facilitating administrative activities to support the CARB project liaisons and grantees with implementation of these projects. While SHIFT has not received funding for new projects this fiscal year, implementation of previously funded projects will continue through at least 2027. The $2 million in additional funds proposed here will facilitate third-party administrator work for at least one additional year, allowing EPRI to continue assisting CARB through the implementation period for all new projects. Next slide. That concludes the presentation on the SHIFT third-party administrator. It was a small topic, but we'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions, comments, or feedback on this proposal.
Okay, no hands currently up, but we will give it at least a minute before
Yeah,
we
I know that was quick.
transition. Well, light budget year, light slides.
Exactly.
Gonna just hang out for a moment. Oh,
Looks
we
like
have
we've
one. Okay.
got one. And we
All
can go
right,
ahead and go back to that slide for shift so that the content is on the screen. We'll go ahead and do the questions.
All right, Leon Wolf.
Yes, thanks again. As mentioned, I'm Leon Wolf with Photon Marine. Thanks for answering the question earlier. I understand that there's no new money available for shift in the state in the upcoming biennium. I guess this is an advocacy recommendation or request. It's just that if you look across California at money coming from VW Mitigation Trust, Carl Moyer, and the CARB Core program, there's not a whole lot for early stage technologies, and in zero emission, there are still quite a lot of things like hydrogen and others that are still pretty early in the adoption curve. So I don't know if this is a CARB thing so much as a Caltrans or a legislature thing, but it would be great to see more early stage innovation funding in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we agree on the importance of funding for demonstration and pilot projects and helping to accelerate bringing new technologies to market and developing the market support systems that will make them successful. Of course, we don't have the ability to advocate for the funding that we receive from the legislature, and we always recommend that stakeholders who are interested in seeing more of this work in the future work with their advocacy groups and their representatives to express your interest in more funding being appropriated for these in the future.
Thank you.
All right, I think that was the only question that we have. I think Matt, you might be, oh no, we have another hand that went up. Ricardo Armendariz.
Yes, Ricardo Armendariz, project manager with CalStart. And I just, maybe something that I've noticed that may help in the dialogue of these conversations. I know I just heard a small business owner kind of echo the sentiment of maybe having a bigger voice for small businesses and medium businesses in these types of forums. And so, just kind of hearing a lot of the OEMs speaking out was great, such great input. Maybe getting like a bigger take of not only like OEMs, but stakeholders and other additional parties, maybe getting a better balance of that, because I feel like some of this conversation was definitely raised towards more of the OEMs and then racing their side of the business, which is great and understandable, but just kind of maybe even at the forum and playing field.
I think I would just echo what April said earlier, which is that we've received this feedback before, and we do what we can in terms of outreach, and we have all sorts of outreach events across the state to bring attention to our various incentive programs and the funding plan process. And we also have the evening community meetings, as she said, to try and accommodate, hey, if you're a small business and you don't have your own government affairs office and you want to be able to participate, that's the forum for you, where we cover all of this information once more. But Matt, you're welcome I just wanted to reiterate what April had shared because I do think it's pertinent to that comment.
Nope, thought that was perfect. Thanks, Nicole.
All right, William Hall. Oh, nope. Wait. Okay, here we go. All right, William Hall.
Thank you. It's Bill Hall with Coyote Container, and I was interested in the shift comments, and maybe this would be a good way to vet some of this equipment before it's allowed out into the various funding programs to ensure that it actually works, in users' hands, but with the proviso that it's going to be tested for a while. As some of you may know, I'm the recipient of one of the first Nikola sold in California, and now we're trying to pick up the pieces from that. I'm a small one-owner business, and losing $125,000 on my truck that I can't use was a substantial a setback for me. And so of course, we're working very hard to try to find affordable hydrogen, and the state needs to step up, I think, and help with that process. And I'm always inputting to the state to try to find methods where it can be feasible to get affordable hydrogen so we can run our trucks. But that's the main reason my truck isn't running, not so much the warranty support. It's the lack of affordable infrastructure to operate it. So when the OEM went bankrupt, testing some of this stuff and seeing what kind of problems you encounter with Shift first would be a good way to proof of concept that these things are not a waste of the taxpayers' money and that they actually work. So that's my input. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for your engagement and advocacy. And thanks also for highlighting one of the very important benefits of the SHIFT program. Is SHIFT has really paved the way for the commercial technologies that are available today in programs like HVIP and CORE. These projects have allowed de-risk manufacturers and fleets to try new things, to advance their technology, make it more commercially viable, and eventually get it to market. These projects are really important for proving out not just the vehicle technology, but the infrastructure, software, and all of the supporting things that allow these vehicles and equipment to be used successfully.
All right, I think with that, it's time to turn over to the heavy duty investment strategy. Thanks everyone for your comments.
Great, thank you, Nicole. So finally, we will turn to our long-term heavy-duty investment strategy. The heavy-duty investment strategy is CARB's long-term guidance document for clean transportation incentives funding, that being from low-carbon transportation investments and the Air Quality Improvement Program. It covers 3 fiscal years, beginning with the upcoming budget year, and it is updated annually. The strategy serves as a roadmap, showing how state incentives can help spark private sector investment and create partnerships necessary to support the acceleration of clean technology advancement and market deployment in the heavy-duty on- and off-road sectors. It identifies key priority areas for investment that will help maintain market momentum to reduce emissions from the heavy-duty space. Next slide. A principal product of the heavy-duty investment strategy, the 3-year investment priorities table details our recommendations for clean transportation incentives, beginning next fiscal year and organized by the aims of our projects, those being the demonstration of pre-commercial technology and scaled pilot deployments of early commercial technology, programs designed to accelerate broad market adoption, and equity projects helping small fleets and priority populations access the cleanest technology. The table is intended to show our top priorities and is not exhaustive of all the types of projects we would or intend to fund given sufficient resources. In the interest of space, we are unable to include everything, so even if something you expect to see isn't on the table, it doesn't mean that it's not a category of interest to CARB. With a new fiscal year now added to the table for fiscal year 2028-2029, staff has worked with internal experts and industry advisors to help develop proposed project category priorities. We also made a couple updates to the fiscal years 26-27 and 27-28 columns from last year's document. Some priorities guiding this year's update include building market momentum with high volume deployments of zero-emission medium and heavy-duty trucks, ensuring equitable access to and disbursement of public funds, and shifting pre-commercial project focus to demanding applications like ocean-going vessels and aviation. I'll give you some time to look over the table while I point out some highlights. The new 3rd year is characterized by the narrowing of scope as more technologies graduate out of our incentive programs and we focus on demanding platforms, continued large volume commercial deployment, and equity. As with last year, we're using the AT abbreviation, which stands for Advanced Technology, before those most challenging applications to represent non-zero emission solutions. AT represents true stepping stones to zero emission in demanding applications, not just cleaner combustion, renewable fuels, or conventional hybrids. For example, hydrogen turbine hybrids in aviation, zero emission capable hybrids in marine, and other solutions we're hoping to learn more about. Zero emission hydrogen and off-road ecosystem projects will continue progress on a variety of platforms, interconnected systems, and practices. And finally, continued exploration of secondary market support, financing, and insurance assistance for small fleets. We'll leave this slide up for a bit longer, but we'd love to get your thoughts on our proposed fiscal year 28-29 priorities and the other changes I've mentioned. Nicole?
Yep. All right. We have Jamie Levine. You are now unmuted. Please state your name and affiliation, even if you've spoken before.
Yeah, Jamie Levin with Center for Transportation and Environment. Hi, Matt. First of all, I pray that the state comes up with this amount of money. That's our biggest challenge. The technologies are playing out really well, and certainly fuel cell, which I work on in both the transit and the freight markets, really proving to be a desirable technology by the fleet operators. I would like to suggest under demos and pilots that you include a pilot for a fuel cell coach, which is a 3-axle, long-range intercity, heavy-duty transit vehicle. It's being used extensively by Caltrans and some of the bigger fleets, certainly like LA Metro and AC Transit. Others do have coaches in operation. Battery electrics just don't have the energy storage to be able to provide the kind of flexibility in operating these on the various duty cycles at the high speeds that they operate, certainly for Caltrans. And secondly, I think market equity. I think the CARB needs to align itself with the program that has been established under ARCHES. And there's a significant commitment that was made to the Department of Energy. We're hoping that the federal government does not claw back those funds that were awarded through contract, but the state's got to be able to step up to advance both the heavy-duty truck market, where ARCHES has a goal of 5,000 Class 8 trucks over the next roughly 8 years, and we're going to need significant funding to bridge the TCO gap. Without TCO focus, we're all talking about a concept with not much reality to the cost of the fleet, to the fleet operator to keep these vehicles operational and competitive with incumbent technologies. That's it. Thanks for the opportunity to comment, and good job, Matt.
Thanks, Jamie. While not specifically called out on the table, a fuel cell coach pilot or a project that includes fuel cell coaches would likely be eligible should we receive funds in the future. And regarding ARCHES, we started signaling last year an interest in aligning future demo and pilot projects with ARCHES where possible, leveraging funding from multiple sources to create larger and more successful projects that would be included under zero emission or hydrogen ecosystems.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. All right, next we have Richard Blaustein.
Yes, thanks again. Rich Blaustein from Climate Brief. I'm a journalist. This is really informative. Thanks so much. Two quick questions. So under market momentum, is that where HVIP would be?
Correct. Yeah, that would be our commercial incentive programs like HVIP and CORE.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And then just some questions of guidance on policy. It's early to speculate on this, but are this design with some of the withdrawals of waivers like in-use locomotive regulations, heavy-duty trucks? How has that figured into the background, and what is the aspiration here to cover? Any policy analyses that you have done would be helpful to know too.
The long-term heavy-duty investment strategy is a largely aspirational document, and while we do take into consideration the entire landscape and all context for how the market moves forward and how best incentives can help move the market, including regulations that are coming, planned, in effect. The analyses that you see here are largely based on our view on what is necessary and the types of projects that will be most beneficial for our investments to maintain the acceleration of technology advancement across a wide variety of applications, as well as preparing early markets and building that market momentum. So those are, to answer your question directly, those are in a sense factored in, but the analysis includes many things.
So I do want to add, thanks, Rich, for your question. I think a couple of things. One, these are just staff proposals for the CARB funding plan, not adopted board policy. But I think what you're most interested in is like how is CARB responding to the changing federal landscape and issues like that. I highly recommend you contact our comms folks, and so we will email you after this, and they'll be able to provide a more direct answer to your question.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we are finished with questions. I think because we have a few more minutes, we were thinking that, oh, sorry, that if there were any other HVIP related questions in the next 10 minutes, we can take those. I know a lot of folks may have jumped, but if you had any, we can take a few more questions before we wrap at 3:30. All right, Nico Bill Camp, hopefully I said that right.
Hi, Nicole. Yes, you said it correct. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So Nico Balkamp with GTI Energy, part of the mobility group. A question based on the previous overview that Matt shared. Can you maybe say a few words about how the kind of the feeding into that those technology areas works and where other state agencies may play a role? For example, you're looking at some maritime solutions, some very heavy duty solutions that are not cheap and easy to come by. Is there some role for CEC or other entities within the state that may consider funding some lower TRL componentry or contributing on technology development for these items? Because building a vehicle in any of those categories is quite the undertaking. Having our experience with the fuel cell locomotive in West Sacramento that's currently operational, and 3 more coming in the works. It is not easy, and it will take quite a bit of effort. So it would be great if you can shed some light on what is leading in the state towards the support of getting to those categories that you would like to see funded.
Yeah, as you mentioned, for a lot of the items, especially in that top row for demos and pilots in the out years, we're getting into very challenging applications. And we always welcome working with our agency partners. We believe in the all of government approach to reducing emissions. And we have a long history of working, for example, with the California Energy Commission on our shift demonstration and pilot projects. And we hope to have the opportunity in the future as well. I'd welcome your feedback on ideas of how we can engage in perhaps new and effective ways with other agencies. As you know, there is a segregation of responsibilities, especially as it comes to the technology readiness level at which our incentives come in, which is usually at that demonstration phase after R&D is complete. So we are a little bit limited there, but would welcome hearing your ideas on how we can increase our impacts.
Okay, I'll work on that. Thank you, Matt and Nicole.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Matt Messick.
Yep, can you hear me okay? All right, perfect. Matt Messick with Azuzu. Curious, with the proposed increased vetting and testing requirements under HVIP for the next fiscal year program, will that require reapplication for existing models that are already in the catalog?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's still very early in this phase, but likely will not, anything in the HVIP catalog will not require retesting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Truong Tran. Hopefully I said that right.
Yes, you got that right first try. So first off, thank you for the presentation. This question is going to be for the ISEF team, and maybe the HVIP may be able to help too. I'm from Mojave Desert AQMD. So my question is, as you all know, the especially for the smaller fleet, the biggest challenge for owner operator is, after obtaining the vehicles, the big rig trucks, their challenge is having to install the infrastructure. Now, my question is the voucher have the infrastructure portion added to it, or is that a separate thing that they need to apply for? Or is infrastructure even eligible? Hopefully, you guys got my question.
Brianna or Andrea, because I think this question was specific to ISEF.
Yes. So currently infrastructure is not an eligible cost through ISEF or through the broader HVIP program. The California Energy Commission does run some infrastructure programs such as the Energize program that we certainly encourage fleets to explore. It is something that we can certainly take into consideration with ISEF in the future. But that's kind of where we are right now. Again, encourage fleets that are interested to reach out to Cal Fleet Advisor. They can provide support on funding both for the vehicles as well as exploring what funding opportunities may exist for associated infrastructure.
Right, because I think utilities also sometimes have their own incentive programs as well. So Cal Fleet Advisor is a great resource. Okay, next we have Christian Damkier.
Hi, Christian Damkier with the Sac Metro Air District. Question with HVIP. Are you anticipating any changes to any of the funding stacking restrictions with the new amounts?
Hey, Christian, thanks for the question. No, we don't see any policy changes on stacking. So unless you had a specific project, are you thinking like CCAT?
Yeah, this is a general thing just for Moyer, with the lower voucher awards, if there was the ability to stack the lower vouchers with the Carl Moyer cap, other programs, if that was going to be an entertaining possibility.
Right. So I think Moyer, we're still retaining stacking with small fleets, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no changes.
Okay, great. We next have Jeremy Ostrander.
Yes, hi, this is Jeremy Ostrander at Electric Vehicle Choice. Just wanted to check in on the truckers' compliance with the next wave of HVIP funding and how that's going to work, especially with public agencies and with all the new requirements of the clean truck checks, of making sure that the fleets are in compliance so they can actually utilize the vouchers. I know in the past we kind of hit a roadblock where it'll be compliant when we do the request, get the voucher, and then they'll fall out of compliance in that period of either pre or post delivery. Have you guys made any progress in maybe finding out these? Every fleet has their own, we have to kind of learn each fleet's, status. Is there a way you guys are working to help us ensure this prior to vouchers and doing a better handoff, or is that something that's going to be changing the IAM?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for that question. So right, we are been evaluating how we've been doing truckers compliance checks, kind of like voucher what do I want to at the time of voucher application versus when you do the final redemption. So we're making changes on that. Basically, it will be reflected in the IM. And essentially, we're going to be doing more of the compliance checks like truckers up front. So it won't be a second check, but April, I think, may have some additional details there if you want to go into that, April.
Sure. Hi, Jeremy. Long time no chat. We are pushing the compliance check aspect of the HVIP process to the very beginning. So fleets will be, there will be no delays in the processing related to compliance or lack thereof. I will say that we are still requiring the trucker certificates where applicable. And then also the clean truck check certificate for the fleet will be something that's required.
Okay, that's a good question because public agencies are more of a like something I'm looking at right now. A lot of public agencies I talk to have told me that they know they're out of ACF compliance, which they're still obligated to. So then the question is if they get funding, if I go for a little small local city for a grant and then find out they're out of compliance, my guess is they wouldn't get funding until they pay to bring their fleet into compliance. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, you will not likely get far into the process where you're delivering vehicles before we're telling you they're out of compliance.
Okay, and that's for ACF as well, because I don't really know how we can even. I guess the truckers the truckers, does it keep an average? Does it show? I guess compliance certificate would show for ACF. It's got that mechanism in there to show if a public agency has met their zero emissions guidelines, or is it only for diesel?
So right now we're still discussing the ACF as it applies to public fleets, but it definitely will be included in the IM when we release that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, folks. I think that concludes our Q&A here. I don't know, April, if you wanted to bring us home. Oh, you're muted.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. If you have any questions or concerns that arise after the meeting when you're thinking about it later or discussing with your colleagues, feel free to reach out. The contact information is currently on the screen. There is a typo in Nathan's email address, but we dropped that in the chat. Also, there should be a link to the calendar for the evening community meetings in the chat for those people that would like to attend our evening meetings that are a recap of what we talk about during the day. And again, thank you all for joining us. We will post this presentation in about 2 weeks.